Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to cut through all the noise, the constant notifications, the pressure of modern life. We're digging into some really ancient wisdom, and it offers what feels like, well, maybe a surprising shortcut to real integrity, real confidence. It's found in this profound prayer that honestly still feels incredibly powerful today. Okay, let's unpack this.
Exactly. And our mission here, it's really to go beyond just, historical facts. We want to dive into this specific bit of the Bible and pull out practical things, genuinely actionable insights for your life right now.
Yeah.
It's about getting hold of these foundational principles, principles that can really shape your daily choices, your relationships, and, well, ultimately your faith journey.
Less history and more toolkit.
That's a good way to put it. A spiritual toolkit.
And the source for all this, it's Psalm 26, a really powerful, maybe even audacious prayer from King David. I mean, picture this. David the king, he's openly asking God to judge him. Now, it sounds maybe a bit arrogant at first, right? But it seems it's coming from this deep trust, this bold statement about his own integrity. He kicks it off with, "Judge me, O Lord, for I have walked in mine integrity. I have trusted also in the Lord, therefore I shall not slide." Wow, what a line. But doesn't that sound, I don't know, a little bit like he's boasting?
That's a great question. And that's where the nuance really comes in. You see, David isn't claiming he's perfect here. That's often how we read it today. But it's a misconception. What he's expressing is more like a consistent effort, a lifelong aim to live honestly and faithfully before God. In the original Hebrew context, integrity, the word is in Tom, wasn't about being flawless. It meant being whole, complete, sincere in your devotion and your actions.
Okay. Wholeness.
Exactly. It was fundamentally about relational faithfulness to God. So David actually invites God's scrutiny. He says, "Examine me, O Lord, and prove me. Try my reins and my heart."
Try my reins on my heart. That's a phrase you don't hear every day. What's he getting at there?
Right. It's a powerful poetic image. The reins, well, that refers to the kidneys. And in ancient thinking, the kidneys were seen as the seat of your deepest emotions, your desires, even your conscience.
Okay, the very core.
Precisely. So when David says, "Try my reins and my heart," he's basically saying, God, look deep inside. Scrutinize my innermost thoughts, my hidden motives, my core being, not just what people see on the outside.
Wow.
He's laying himself totally bare before God. And he's confident that even deep down, his orientation, his direction is towards God's truth. Like he says right after, "For thy loving kindness is before mine eyes, and I have walked in thy truth." He's saying, my whole life, I've tried to live it in your light, God, with your love always in view.
That kind of radical transparency, that willingness to be fully seen, flaws and all, that's profound. It's both humility and real courage, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a deep act of faith.
And it's something we often struggle with, that transparency,
Right.
hiding our struggles, putting up a front. It's so common. And David seems to suggest that part of living in that truthful light involves, well, intentionally separating himself from negative influences. He's super direct about it. He says, "I have not sat with vain persons, neither will I go in with dissemblers. I have hated the congregation of evildoers and will not sit with the wicked." Now, that sounds pretty intense. Is he saying we should just, cut off anyone who doesn't meet some standard? How does that translate today?
Yeah, it's a crucial point. And you're right, it needs careful handling. It's definitely more nuanced than just shunning people. When David talks about vain persons, he likely means those who are empty, boastful, focused on things that don't last. Dissemblers are the deceitful ones, the two-faced people hiding their real intentions. So David distancing himself isn't about feeling superior or self-righteous. It's more like a strategic choice, a deliberate move to stay spiritually and morally grounded. Think of it like protecting your inner landscape, guarding against corruption that could pull you away from God.
So discernment, not just isolation.
Exactly. Discernment. In today's world, that could look like being selective about, say, online groups you join, or the media you constantly consume, or maybe setting clear boundaries in certain relationships that consistently pull you down or compromise your values. It's about recognizing what nourishes your spirit versus what drains or corrupts it. And he takes it further with that powerful image, washing his hands in innocence before approaching God's altar.
Right. "I will wash mine hands in innocency. So will I compass thine altar, O Lord."
Yes. It's this incredibly vivid symbol. It connects his commitment to ethical behavior directly with his worship. It's like he's declaring, my devotion isn't just showing up for the ritual, it's reflected in how I actually live my life.
So the two are linked.
Deeply linked. David shows us that real, genuine worship flows out of right living. And
Yeah.
that commitment to living right, that's an act of obedience, isn't it? It reinforces his faith by making his actions match his devotion.
That image of washing hands in innocence, it really does stick with you. It's such a clear visual. And threaded through this whole psalm is David's, well, his deep love for God's presence, for his house. He says it so beautifully, Lord, I have loved the habitation of thy house and the place where thine honor dwelleth. It clearly wasn't just about bricks and mortar for him.
No, absolutely not.
Can you unpack that a bit more? Why was that longing so central for David?
Well, David's intense desire for God's sanctuary, it wasn't just about finding a safe place, like you said, not just the building itself. It was because the sanctuary represented God's glory, his tangible presence, his nearness. For David, that was the ultimate place for spiritual renewal, the place he could connect most intimately with God. It really speaks to a deep spiritual hunger, a yearning for that unique, transformative encounter with the divine. And it's this connection, this constant effort to draw near to God, that really fuels his confidence at the end. Because David finishes the psalm with this remarkably steady, confident tone. He says, his foot standeth in an even place, and he will bless the Lord publicly.
An even place. That sounds like stability.
Exactly. Stability, a firm foundation, not slipping or stumbling, not being afraid. And this deep confidence, it's born from having a clear conscience, from living with integrity before God. It means he doesn't need to hide anything.
No hiding.
He can stand firm, be totally transparent, and worship openly without shame or doubt. It's really quite inspiring when you think about it.
So we've dug into David's bold prayer, his focus on integrity, setting boundaries, loving the presence. But okay, what does this all mean for you listening right now? In our messy, complicated 21st century lives, this is where it gets really interesting.
Right, because we can take these ancient insights and apply them directly and see how they really do encourage obedience and, crucially, strengthen our faith. So first off, live transparently, even when no one's watching. In this age of, carefully curated social media feeds and performing virtue, David's integrity challenges us.
Yeah.
It calls us to align what we say we value with how we actually act, whether we're online or offline, whether anyone sees us or not.
That's tough.
It is. But the shortcut to confidence isn't hiding flaws. Paradoxically, it's being willing to expose them, at least to God's scrutiny, like David did. That act of vulnerability coupled with wanting integrity, that's the bedrock of real inner peace. It's obedience to God's call for authenticity. And when we choose that, our faith grows because we're trusting him with our real selves, not some polished version.
Okay, point 2.
Second, David shows us we need to draw boundaries with harmful influences. Just like he consciously avoided those vain persons and dissemblers, we're called today to step back from toxic environments, maybe dishonest business practices, or even just unhealthy social circles.
It's not about being judgmental, you said.
Exactly. It's about self-preservation, really. And it's an act of obedience to God's call for righteousness. Think about the subtle ways negativity creeps in, maybe a constant diet of cynical news, or conversations full of gossip, or even those social media feeds that just make you feel discontented.
Yeah, I see that.
Setting boundaries protects your spirit, your emotional well-being. And doing that shows you trust God's guidance for who and what you associate with. That trust, in turn, strengthens your faith.
Makes sense. What's third?
Third, David challenges us. Make worship more than a ritual. Remember the clean hands linked to the altar. His behavior, his choices were tied directly to his worship.
Yeah.
That pushes us to think beyond just, going through the motions religiously. Are we actually living in a way that honors what we claim to believe?
Oof, that's a big question.
It is. But when our daily actions, even the private decisions nobody sees, line up with our stated faith, it deepens our obedience to God. When inner conviction matches outer conduct, our worship stops being just performance. It becomes a living testament, a powerful witness. And that profoundly strengthens faith in a way that's real, tangible.
Okay, number 4.
Fourth, David's longing for God's house is a reminder. Keep coming back to God's presence. We have to actively make space for spiritual renewal, whether that's through prayer, reading scripture, quiet reflection, maybe meaningful time with fellow believers.
In a world screaming for our attention.
Right. In a world that constantly demands everything from us, prioritizing time with God cultivates that deeper relationship. And this isn't just a nice to have. It's essential for strengthening faith.
Yeah.
Because it's in that consistent connection we find clarity, peace, and the spiritual strength to live obediently. It grounds us when everything else feels shaky.
That's so true. And the last one.
And finally, number 5. David's example teaches us to let conscience guide confidence. A clear conscience brings this deep peace, this stability that no amount of external praise or validation can ever match. If you find yourself constantly second-guessing or covering your tracks or just feeling this nagging unease, well, that's often a sign something needs to shift inside.
Mm-hmm.
David models a life where confidence doesn't flow from achievements or what others think.
Mm.
It flows directly from being authentic, having integrity before God.
Mm.
And that kind of confidence, the kind rooted in a clear conscience and obedient living, lets us stand firm in our faith. We can trust God's judgment because we know we're striving to live openly and honestly before Him.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive into Psalm 26. It really feels like David's ancient prayer for integrity gives us such timeless, practical principles. Principles for living with real confidence, real faithfulness, even with all the complexities of today.
I agree.
It really drives home that being fully known by God, even with our flaws, isn't actually something to fear. Maybe it's the path to freedom.
It truly is. It shows us that, okay, perfection, that's off the table. We're human. But a consistent direction of the heart towards God, lived out with intentional integrity, that brings real, practical power into our lives. It's less about being flawless, more about being authentic and whole before God.
So here's something to think about as we wrap up. Considering David's prayer, how might embracing radical transparency and integrity in your own life today encourage your obedience and deepen your confidence in your faith?